Hi there, I'm Leoya Lewis, and welcome to another edition of New Day, New Beginnings. Now, today's title is You Can't Have Your Cake and Eat It Too, because with God, it's all or nothing. Now, today's story, it's a strange story. It's one of the strangest stories there are in our scripture. Now, God's going to show you how he can turn your world upside down to expose ambition, pride, and as well to show his unshakable power of his blessings. Now, the star of this story is an animal, a humble animal that's simply meant for burden bearing and sacks and carrying things. It's a mule, it's a donkey. And well, he's going to be able, it's a female donkey, she's going to be able to speak wisdom far beyond the prophets. And we're going to see how God says yes and no to the same request. Yes and no to the same request. That's going to be the main focus of our story. And we're going to see how a donkey's voice speaks louder than a prophet's pride. Now, how often, and this pertains to you, think about yourself. How often do we chase opportunity, stuff, what we think might be beneficial to us? Oh, that sounds like a great idea, and that sounds like this, that, and the other. But we don't know that because we might be missing an opportunity and or even a warning. Now, how often do we say, "Oh, I'm obedient. I do what God says," but sometimes secretly we're kind of hoping permission to really follow what is our desire. I'm guilty. A lot of times in the past, I've hoped for things that in here in your heart, but you know, I just not feeling comfortable about it because we didn't get God's permission. So, what could we be missing with a divided heart? We're wishy washy. I'm guilty. We're wishy washy. We want to do right. We know what's right. And sometimes, well, if I just do this, it'll be okay. And today we're going to talk about one man who this happened to. And you're about to see why there is no force on earth that could ever overturn what God has spoken. And the one man I'm talking about today, his name is Balak. And Balak, he was the king of Moab. And he was getting kind of scared because he had seen what the Israelites had done in other countries. The Amorites, he had defeated and taken over their land and everything because it was so many of them. It was thousands of them. And they were just moving about, setting up house and taking over everybody's land. And they were getting really fearful. And Balak, even though he was king, he was fearful because he knew he couldn't defend himself against them. So he decided that he would send his messengers to the prophet Balaam. Now, Balaam came to his mind because Balaam was well known throughout the nations. And he wanted Balaam to come to his aid because he felt that he could help him. So, and even in, now we're going to go to Numbers chapter 22, because even verse 5 says he's getting ready to send people, his people, to Balaam, because he wants Balaam to come and help him get rid of these Israelites before they take over his land. And he said, now you go there and you tell Balaam here. He's telling him, behold, there's people coming out of Egypt. And behold, they cover the face of the earth like there's so many of them. He's getting really nervous. And he says, they're abiding by me. And they're going to come and try to take over. And he's getting more scared and more scared. So now he's telling them, go get Balaam. Now let's look in verse 6, because these are his people going to Balaam, and they're telling him, they're saying, come now, therefore, I pray thee, because these people come to curse. I need you to come curse them for me. This is them speaking for their king. I need you to come curse them for me so that I can overtake them, because I need to drive them out of the land. And he says, because whoever you bless will be blessed, but whoever you curse will be cursed. So now they went back. And so Balaam says, okay, well, you stay here overnight. He's telling them, they explain the situation. And he said, well, you stay here overnight, and I'll bring you word after I speak with the Lord. And whatever he tells me to do, you go back and tell your king. So that night, look at verse 9. It says, God came unto Balaam, and he said, well, who are these men? What men are these? And Balaam said, well, they come from Balak, the king of Moab. And he's saying that they're a base of the earth. That means there's thousands of them, because he can look out and see how many tents. They've got thousands of tents built. And he said, they cover the face of the earth. He says, I need him to come. They need me to come curse them with them, for them, because now they want to be able to overcome them and drive the Israelites out of their country. But God said to Balaam, he said, oh, no, no, no. Thou shalt not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. So, Balaam, he rose up the next morning, and he went to him and he told him, he said, go back to your country, go back to your king, because it says, God, the Lord, refuseth to give me leave to go with you. So they did. They had to go home empty-handed, so to speak. So they went back to King Balak, and they said, well, Balaam refused to come with us. Now, back then, curses were feared. They were feared as much as swords, because words spoken by the right man could determine victory or defeat. And Balaam, he was one of those men. So they knew that they needed his help, because he was respected everywhere. Nations called him, other kings had called him, because they knew if he blessed you, you would prosper. But if he cursed you, you would be destroyed. And the kings and all the nations knew that. And Balak knew it too. And he believed, because he believed that if anybody could say turn the tide, he could do it. Balaam could do it. So and Balak believed that, the rituals and the sacrifices and all that stuff, he believed that, well, maybe that could sway the outcome. I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, that's like as if you could buy God. But anyway, this time he sent priests from each different area, a priest from all his different areas, to go together and take more gifts, more gold, more silver, and promise him a promotion. I'll give him a promotion of honor. So let's see what happens there. Now, let's go to verse 16. And this is when the second set of people came, and they said to Balaam, thus saith Balak the king, I pray do not hinder from coming unto me, for I will promote thee unto very good honor, and I will do whatever you say. Just please come, I pray thee, and curse me this people. And Balaam answered and said unto the servants that came to him, he says, well, I'll tell you, even if Balak gives me his house full of gold and silver, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord of my God to do less or to do more. But again, he invited them to stay the night so that he may know what the Lord would tell him, and he would come back and let them know. And in verse 20, it says, God came unto Balaam that night, and he said unto Balaam, he said, well, if the men come to call thee, rise up, go with them, but yet the word which I shall say unto thee, that shall you do. So now Balaam, the God told him to go, but he said, but I'm not going to tell you what to say until you get there. So, but now Balaam's looking at all this gold and silver and all the wealth that they brought him, and he's thinking, look at all the stuff it could all be mine. And the offer was getting more and more tempting to him. But still he knew that no matter what he desired in his heart, he could not act without consulting God. So the next morning, he got up, he saddled his donkey, and he prepared to go with them to Moab. He had 2 of his servants with him. But at this point, God was kind of angered. In fact, he was boiling over with anger simply because he went. Because, see, the point here is, if he had been fully surrendered to God like he was supposed to be, he would have sent him away right away. He wouldn't have had him spend the night. But now he's looking at all this treasure and stuff. He's getting, what I say, wishy-washy. So God's getting kind of angry now, just the fact that he went. He's just mad about that, because you should have sent him away without question, but he didn't. So now, even though he got permission to go, he still didn't have the approval to go. So God was kind of opening a little space for him here, and it was to expose what was truly in Balaam's heart, not what he was trying to prove that he was doing. So now Balaam goes on. He, and sometimes God grants us what we ask for because he wants to see what our heart truly intends to do or to get. So Balaam thought, well, he told me to go. So, he's still trying to walk that line between obedience and desire. But he called himself being obedient because, God told me to go. But God judges your heart. Now, as they proceeded, Balaam thought he was on the road to honor and all that good stuff. But in reality, he was on the road to confrontation. Now, here's where the story really starts to take a twist. Now, because of God's anger, when he was on the road, all of a sudden, the angel of the Lord appeared in the way against him. But the problem was Balaam didn't see the angel, only the donkey saw him. And she saw the angel, but nobody else saw him. Balaam couldn't see him because he now is blinded by the thought of the wealth and the position and all the stuff that he would have, all the stuff that would be his. Ooh, sorry. All the stuff that would be his. So let's look at verse 23. Let's see where we at here. Verse 23 says, now when the donkey saw the angel in the road, what did she do? She swerved because he had a sword in his hand. So the donkey, she swerved and went a different way. She turned to get away from the sword and she went into the field. And Balaam, he's like, where are you going? And he whacked her with the staff. But the angel of the Lord stood in the path, even in the vineyard, and a wall being on this side and a wall on that side. So when the donkey saw the angel now, she thrust herself into the wall. But when she did that, she made Balaam's foot smash into the wall, and he whipped her again. And then the angel of the Lord took 2 steps back, and he went further, and he stood in a narrow place where you couldn't go left and you couldn't go right. So now what? At this point, when the donkey saw the angel, she had nowhere to go. She couldn't go left and she couldn't go right. So she fell down under Balaam. And he was furious. Now his anger was kindled, and he smote her, meaning hit her hard, real hard, with the staff. And the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and the donkey said, what have I done to thee that you would do this to me? Have I ever done anything to offend you? Why have you whipped me 3 times? Meaning, because he was mad, he said she was mocking him and not doing what he said to do. In other words, she was being disobedient. But she was saying to him, have you ever known me to do anything like this to you? And he just said, no. So let's look at verse 31. So once he said no to the donkey, then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his sword drawn in his hand. And now he knew. He bowed his head and fell flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, why have you smitten your donkey 3 times? It was I went out to withstand you because of the way in which you perverse. Because he was way off. He was being totally disobedient. I was the one. The donkey saw me and turned from me these 3 times. Because if she hadn't turned from me, surely I would have slain you and saved her. I would have slain you and saved her. And the donkey saw me. And Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I knew not that thou stoodest in the way against me. And the angel of the Lord said, go ahead, go with the men, but only the word that I shall speak unto thee, thou shalt thou speak unto Balak. Now, Balak went, but he went forward. He kept going with the men. And when Balak heard that, oh, Balaam's coming, he ran out to meet him. And he asked him, he said, well, why didn't you come when I first called you? And what did you think, I wasn't going to be able to promote you to honor? And verse 38 says, well, Balaam said, I come to you, yes, here, but I speak the word that God putteth in my mouth. And he went on with Balak, where he sat down and offered him more oxen and sheep, and him and his servants. So the next day, Balak went with Balak, because Balak, the king, took him up to these high places where they do all these rituals and things. He took them up into the high places of Baal, where he could see most of these people he was talking about. And here Balaam said, okay, well, you build 7 altars and prepare 7 oxen, 7 rams on an altar. Now, in chapter 23, verse 3 says, Balaam said to Balak, now you stand by the burnt offering, while I go to speak, and I'll see if the Lord will come to meet with me. I will tell you. So Balaam went forward to meet with the Lord. And God met with Balaam, and he said, he's telling the Lord, I prepared 7 altars, and I have offered upon every altar a bullock and a ram. Now, let's see, where I lost my place. Okay, so he met with the Lord, and the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth, and he said, you go to Balak and tell him this is what you shall speak. And he returned unto him, and he stood by the burnt sacrifice, and he said, he took out his parable, and he read it, and he said, Balak, the king of Moab, you brought me here from Aram out of the mountains. You wanted me to come and curse Jacob, and you wanted me to defy Israel. But how can I curse whom God hath not cursed? Or how shall I defy whom the Lord has not defied? For from the top of the rocks I see him, and from the hills I behold him. And the people shall dwell alone, and shall not be reckoned among the nations. Now, he went on to say that Balak said to Balaam, well, what is this? What have you done? I brought you here to curse them. And behold, you have blessed them, every last one of them. And he answered, Balaam said, well, must I not take heed to speak that which the Lord hath put in my mouth? But look, Balaam's still going, he's going forward some more. And Balaam said, well, come with me to another place. So now he's taking him to another place. And he said, okay, so they went through the same altar thing, and they did everything over again in Pisgah. And Balaam said, stand here by the burnt offering, and I will meet with God. And in verse 16, it says, the Lord met with Balaam, but he put a word in his mouth. And he returned to Balak, and he said, he took up his parable, and he said, rise up, Balak, and hear. Hearken unto me, the son of Zippor. God is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent. Hath he said, and shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make it good? So he says, behold, received a commandment to bless, and he now hath blessed, and I cannot reverse it. He hath not found any iniquity in Jacob, nor has he found any perverseness in Israel. And the Lord is his God, and he is with him, and the shout of a king is among them. Now, that means God brought them out of Egypt. Now, he's now blessing them because he's saying how the people are going to rise up in the future. He's looking into the future and telling him. But Balak believed that, I'll try something else. Maybe something else different will happen. And he did. He tried something else. He took him to the top of Peor and let him and performed all the same ritual. I don't know whether he thought, that could change something, but he knew that he wanted them cursed. He said, now you're up higher, you can see them better. Maybe you can curse them from here. But in Numbers chapter 24, it says that this place where they are now faces Jeshimon. And when Balaam saw that it pleased God, he set his face toward the wilderness. So that means now this place where they are up higher, let's see what in verse 24 it says. Verse already says, oh, how goodly are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy tabernacles, O Israel. Blessed is he that blesseth thee, and cursed is he that curseth thee. So that sounds like to me, it's a switch in roles, and it is. And Balak recognized that. And in verse 10, Balak became angry and very annoyed with Balaam because he did the reverse of what he said. He said, I called you up here to curse my enemies, and you went to blessing all of them 3 times, because he took them to 3 different places to see how many of them there were. Therefore, leave this place. I thought I was going to promote you into great honor, but lo, the Lord hath kept me back from honor, from thee. And Balaam said unto him, didn't I tell your messengers when they first came, that even if you gave me your house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the commandment of the Lord to do either bad or good in my own mind? But what the Lord saith, I will speak. Now, sometimes this is a story that shows how easily we can be dissuaded, distracted, whatever you want to call it, and even destroyed because we're trying to satisfy our inward desires, but outwardly trying to please God. And we cannot partially surrender to God. With him, it's all or nothing. And sometimes, just like Balaam, we get blinded by our desires. And all we have to do is what, like Dorothy did, follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. But Luckily for Balaam, he received a warning from the angel of the Lord and committed. And even though he needed three warnings, but he had been spared because of the mercy of God. Now think about yourself. What must when our hearts are divided? And even a divided heart can be obedient, but only to a point. But a total surrender that has no limit. So, once again, the moral is never stop asking God for direction and blessing. And my closing words for today are practice total surrender and stop trying to have your cake and eat it too. Because with God, it's all or nothing. And until next week, I'm Lelia Lewis. Thanks for joining me.